From 1917 to the present day, for numerous centuries during the Ottoman Caliphate, the city of Jerusalem and Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa were preserved with honor and dignity, with Muslims being in charge of the administration of the city, but in line with Islamic law and the Ottoman millet system. They provided religious freedom and security for the Jewish and Christian minorities. However, all this changed when the Zionist movement in Europe emerged with the aim of creating a Jewish state on Muslim Palestinian land. This Zionist movement, which was supported by the British, was further strengthened during World War I, when the British captured Jerusalem and brought an end to 8 centuries of Muslim rule. On arrival into Palestine in 1917, they found a land that was 90% populated by Arabs and with fewer than 56,000 Jews, of which only 5% were native Palestinian Jews, with the majority being those who had fled European persecution. In recent decades, the British allowed the Muslims control of Al-Masjid al-Haram during this period. 5 years after the British capture of Jerusalem, the first restoration works of the 20th century in Al-Masjid al-Aqsa took place, and a couple of years later, in 1924, Transjordan took over custodianship of Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. In 1947, prior to Britain passing over the issue of Palestine to the UN, the Jews owned less than 6% of the total land of Palestine. For this reason, when the UN General Assembly recommended, despite this being outside of their competence according to the UN Charter, having a Jewish state which would comprise 54% of the Palestinian land, the native Palestinians rejected the proposal. In 1948, after a war and numerous massacres and atrocities committed by the Zionists, the Jews established Israel on 78% of Palestinian land and captured approximately 85% of Jerusalem. The Jordanian Arab Legion took control of the West Bank, including 11% of the eastern parts of Jerusalem, which encompassed the Old City and Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. In 1967, following a further war, Israel illegally occupied East Jerusalem and claimed to unify Jerusalem as part of Israel. This move was, and is still, opposed and unrecognized by the international community. Following its capture of Jerusalem and the protests that followed, the Jewish authorities swiftly handed Al-Masjid al-Aqsa back to Muslim control. Following attempts by prominent Israeli figures to establish Jewish prayers at Al-Masjid al-Aqsa and subsequent protests, a law was passed prohibiting Jewish prayer on Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. The decision has also meant that Jews and foreign tourists could only enter Al-Masjid al-Aqsa through the Maghrebi Gate. However, since 1967, many Israeli authorities have passed rulings permitting Jews to offer worship on the site of Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, and many organizations have been lobbying Israeli officials to start the process of rebuilding a Jewish place of worship on the sacred land of Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. In 1969, a fire that was started by a Zionist extremist destroyed the mimbar that was installed by Salahuddin Ayyubi. The mimbar was considered one of the most beautiful in the world and was constructed with over 10,000 interlocking pieces of cedar and other wood, ivory and mother of pearl affixed without a drop of glue or a single nail. Most of the damage from the fire took over 20 years to repair, due to the Israelis not allowing suitable resources into Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. In 1987, 4 Palestinian men were killed, queuing at a checkpoint in Gaza, sparking the first Intifada. Intifada literally means shaking off and is used to convey the meaning of setting Palestine and Al-Masjid al-Aqsa free from Israeli oppression. In 2000, Ariel Sharon marched on Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, surrounded by over 1,000 security guards and police. This sparked the second Palestinian Intifada. Following this visit, restrictions were placed on Palestinians wishing to pray at Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, with Palestinian men, especially those between 18 to 50 years of age, facing bans from praying at certain times. These restrictions continue to this day. In March 2013, Jordanian King Abdullah II signed an agreement with the Palestinian Authority President, Mahmoud Abbas, which maintained and reiterated the status quo that the King of Jordan is the official custodian of the holy sites in Jerusalem and that he has the right to exert all legal efforts to preserve them, especially Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. In November 2013, a draft Israeli law was proposed in the Knesset, Israeli parliament, allowing Jews the right to pray on Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. This development was the result of 40 years of intense lobbying by nationalists who wished to destroy Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa in its current form and replace it with a Jewish place of worship. In October 2014, Israeli authorities closed Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa for the first time since 1967. This resulted in mass protests across Palestine and the Muslim world and was swiftly followed by Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa being reopened. To summarize the present-day situation, Israel systematically denies access to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa to most Palestinians, has permitted excavation works to be carried out under Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, damaging the foundations of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, and has permitted Jews to enter Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa during certain times on most days, despite this being contrary to traditional rabbinical law for fear of disrespecting such sacred land. In addition to this, Israel maintains a security force on Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa permanently despite numerous appeals by the Supreme Muslim Council, and yet still fails to prevent Zionist extremists causing damage to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. Interestingly, the UN Security Council has passed more than 20 resolutions condemning Israel's annexation of Old Jerusalem, and Israel has been the most frequently condemned state by the UN in its history.